Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I am Karen Osburn, VP of Product and Operations here at Peakzi. Welcome to today's Peakzi webinar. You built it on grit, now scale it with systems and AI. We're excited to have such a strong group of operators and leaders joining this conversation because right now, home service companies are in a major shift. AI is changing how customers search, how companies are evaluated, how teams communicate, and ultimately how businesses scale. At the same time, most operators are still in the balance between growth, culture, hiring, customer experience, and the day-to-day operation pressures all at once. Today's conversation is really about that intersection. How do you scale past yourself and the owner and the dependents and the mainly maintaining quality, accountability, customer trust, and culture at the same time? This is not going to be a theoretical AI conversation. This is operators talking about how and what is actually happening in their industry and their business inside their markets. We have an incredible panel joining us today. We have Bijan Parvin, VP of Sales at Peakzi, Joe Voce, owner of JDV Electric, Sherelle Payne, Marketing Director at Gentleman Pros, and Wes Carver, owner of Wes Carver Electric. Thank you all for taking the time to be here. The format today is conversational, no slides, no scripted presentations, just real discussion around what's changing across hiring, marketing, operations, customer communication, and leadership as AI continues to move into the industry. We'll spend most of the session in the discussion and leave time at the end for the audience Q&A. So feel free to keep dropping those questions in the chat throughout the webinar because we will answer those at the end. With that, let's get started. First up is Bijan Parvin, VP of Sales at Peakzi. Bijan works closely with home service companies across the country and has a front row view into how operators are adapting to changes in AI visibility, customer behavior, and evolving marketing landscape. He's been deeply involved in conversations around AI search, pricing transparency, customer experience, and how companies position themselves moving forward. Bijan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Karen. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. A little bit about myself. I've been in the home service marketing world since late December 2018. So, throughout these last 7, 8 years, I have really observed the evolution of home service companies adopting software for various use cases. And it feels like since the end of 2022, when ChatGPT came on the market and really gave everyday people access to AI, that the amount of tools and solutions a contractor can select to solve various problems has just exponentially increased. It feels like every single week I'm hearing of a new AI company that's solving amazing problems or saying that they're solving amazing problems. So I really view using AI as a home service business that you need to be looking inside of a specific department to solve a specific problem. I see applications for contractors using AI within marketing, within operations, within talent and recruiting. But what I have found is that there's a little bit of a mixed bag of feedback, whether this tool was effective or not. So, from my perspective, if you're a contractor thinking how I can use AI, there's specific areas that you should be looking at. Like, how can I use AI to book more calls? How can I use AI to generate more leads? To dispatch my technicians more effectively. These are all great operational use cases, but if you're a contractor and thinking about those problems, first I would try to understand, do I have a problem in my call taking department right now? Am I struggling with dispatching for profit? Am I struggling with coaching my technicians the old school way as opposed to using like call recording software? If you as an operator feel like you are lacking inside of those departments, then it would make sense to look at some of the AI tools that you can adopt to solve these problems. But I also think a very critical thing that so far has been lost on some contractors I work with is so many people are thinking, how can I use AI to make my business more efficient? Not everyone so far is thinking, how are my customers going to use AI to find my business? And everyone here is aware of Peakzy and has probably worked with us in some fashion. that is the problem we're highly focused on because we do see that there's a shift going on in the landscape of search where more and more average people are pivoting to tools like ChatGPT to connect with service providers, whereas previously they would just go exclusively on systems like Google search. So that's a big piece of what Peakzi is focused on in terms of helping a contractor solve for. But even then, you're starting to see a lot of different things happening in the market right now. Price transparency has become more and more critical for a contractor to evaluate. A lot of the coaching and the messaging we received in the past is you need to hold your pricing tight to the end of the customer journey when your technician has gone in a home, done a consultation, and given a couple options. But right now, it looks like all the research is showing that price is starting to insert itself into the beginning of the customer journey. And there's definitely some tools out on the market that can help a contractor capture the price being presented towards the start of that customer journey. So I would say, because homeowners are increasingly going to ChatGPT instead of Google, that it's really critical that your business is showing up there. Again, there's a lot of solutions inside of the market that can help a contractor be more efficient on the operation side. But one thing I would try to encourage you to think about is yes, I can use AI as leverage to make sure I don't miss any calls, make sure I respond to every lead in a second, to make sure that I'm giving my technicians the best coaching, that I'm dispatching the right tech to the right job, and all of our routes in between jobs are fully optimized. But you should definitely hold a different perspective as well in terms of the shoes of your customer. What are they using AI tools for? Starting to see a lot of people are doing like self-diagnosis on home service problems before they even call a contractor, feeding a picture to ChatGPT, asking what's wrong, how can I fix it, or should I work with a professional? If I work with a professional, how much should this cost? These are all things that you should be aware of. And that is what I would have to say on scaling your business using AI. Think about operations, but more importantly, or equally as importantly, think about what your customer is doing with these tools because both of these are critical um, in the state of the world where we're going for home services and pretty much any industry under the sun. Um, so that's what I have to say in terms of scaling with AI tools. If you have any questions, please go ahead and feed them into the chat. And again, thank you for letting me give my little pitch here.
Thank you, Vajan. What you were really, I really enjoyed talking, like hearing you talk about the customer journey and how it's changing with AI, because that is what we're seeing throughout with multiple customers. And I think what you said was going to use how the customer is going to use AI and find my business. And so that is a key question that every owner should be asking right now. So thank you very much. Next up, I have Joe Voci, owner of JDV Electric. Joe has built JDV Electric with a strong focus on culture, accountability, and operational consistency while continuing to grow in a competitive market. He brings the perspective of an owner actively balancing growth, team development, customer experience, and the realities of scaling a service business in today's environment. Joe, excited to hear your perspective.
Hi, thanks, Karen. Appreciate the introduction. Um, so I mean, there's a lot to really unpack with AI and where you want to get started in the direction of it. Um, I mean, we can look at the customer journey, just from my own experience, like Bijan was saying with Chat GPT, right? Customer can take a picture of something, instantly diagnose it, and we're going out on the service call and they're basically telling us what's already wrong with it or what they think is wrong with it. So we're definitely overcoming some obstacles there. I think from an internal standpoint, operation wise, it's still new technology and things are constantly changing. So a couple years back, had tried an AI call center, really for the speed to lead aspect and being able to answer every call, thinking that it's going to provide us with the best customer service. And we found out in the beginning there that the technology really wasn't there. So we had to shift away from it back to a human call center. But now the technology again has advanced, and we are, back with a an AI call center that can handle the overflow again. That's helped us tremendously book more calls. You could use it in the call center, as we say, for booking more calls, but also for analyzing and coaching your CSRs. So a lot of uses you could use it for speed to lead aspects for a lot of these different lead aggregators. I'm still finding new ways every day to kind of to use this stuff. I thought ChatGPT was kind of the answer to everything a couple months back. Then I heard about Claude, and that's kind of my new thing that I've been running everything through. I hope that answers some of the questions there, but there is a lot to unpack, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if it could help anybody.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Yes, like you're saying, it is changing drastically, and there's new tools and new features, and then you combine them and create something really powerful. So thank you for sharing what you're seeing. Next, we have Sherelle Payne. She's the marketing director of Gentleman Pros. Sherelle works at the intersection of branding, customer experience, marketing strategy, and operational communication. She's been navigating how AI, customer expectations, and digital visibility are reshaping the way home service companies connect with homeowners and build trust in the market. Sherelle, I'll hand it over to you.
I'll turn my mic on. Yes, I am Sherelle Payne. I work for the Gentleman Plumbers, Plumbing, Heating, and Electrical. We're a home service company from Canada, and we serve 3 Canadian cities, Calgary, Edmonton, and Red Deer, and all of the surrounding areas. And what I wanted to lean into today was just our experience with AI and how the landscape has changed so much in marketing. And if I can leave everybody with just 2 questions, like to just burn in your mind from what I have to say, it's this. Are you who you say you are? And then the next question is, what evidence exists to prove that? And I'm going to circle back on that, but I want to talk a little bit about what Bijan was talking about with the customer journey. Over the years, it's been fun to see AI move in a lot of different directions. And I think we've been, at parties with our friends when we're creating weird photos and then get that call from a elderly parent who is using AI for the first time, and it's exciting. And we see, certainly in the marketing world, a whole bunch of really bad content on a whole bunch of websites. And then now one thing that I have noticed increasingly is our, I'm going to say, BS detectors are going up real high all the time, and maybe our AI detectors. And I don't know for you, but how often my eyes are open as I'm scrolling on social media or when I'm reading a post or an article on LinkedIn, but it can be so blatantly obvious what is authentic and what isn't. And I think that people's senses have tuned into that in a really big way. And I think AI is more or less following the customer in that sense. We see that in yesteryear, to maybe, rank in those first, the first page or what have you, there was a subscript of things that we wanted to do to get information out and those sorts of things. And working as an SEO for many years, it was very prescribed. We knew that we needed backlinks. We knew we needed, mentions and brands and page authority. But now what people are looking for is authenticity. And I think in part AI is driving that a little bit. One of the fibers of AI that makes it very different from search is that it's in this network of content and then signals showing that you say what you are, and then also trust signals. And I think what we're also moving towards, and we can see it now with Gemini, is personal preference. In the social media realm, this isn't new. Anytime any one of us pick up our Facebook or LinkedIn or TikTok, we see a very curated algorithm coming to us with content that we want. And maybe something that might be a shift for some of us is to understand that this is the direction that AI is heading. Because I'm a Canadian, I do love American football. I have a son named Peyton, and I have a son named Brady. So like, I'm with you guys. But as a Canadian, I just want to throw out a quote that's attributed to the great one, which is Wayne Gretzky. If you don't know who it is, go Google that, because he's incredible. But one of the things that we talk about a lot in Canada is this idea of not going to where the puck is, but going to where the puck is going, and to follow that puck where it's going. And I think probably as a community, if you are connected with Bijan, you also want to be there. And you know that your meetings and things that you discuss with him are always about that forward facing, where's the puck going, and we want to be there. And so as a company, I have the benefit of working under Bram Trim, our owner. It's a family business. And I work with another brilliant man, George, and they have been tremendous mentors to me. And one of the reasons is because they are always looking at where the puck is going. And so with that, we've thought a lot more about the customer journey, but also where AI is moving. And one of the things that I think is really important is to make sure that your brand is entrenched in everything that you do. And I want to give an example of this. I know, like last time, I think there's always been some talk about, like, what's going to take it over? Is it going to be Gemini or Chat? And I think there's a lot of new adopters of Claude lately. But Google is very baked into our everyday life. And there's AI features in our email. There's AI features in our search. There's AI features in anything Google related. And I went today to turn off my AI features, and I noticed all of the extra apps that I could be using Gemini with, including Salesforce, including, I believe, MailChimp. And so this is just like sort of the infancy of what AI looks like. As North Americans, most of us lean towards the iPhone, but in the rest of the world where an Android is predominant, I don't think we're that far away from just, saying, hey, phone, give me all of these answers. And we understand that, Apple has tried to do some partnerships with various things, and they've sort of dropped off, but we're not too far away from all of this being integrated in our ecosystem. I had the benefit of attending SEO Week in New York, and there was an incredible presentation given by Garrett Sussman from iPullRank. If you're interested in this, you could Google this, and I'm sure he has a lot of articles written about it, or will. But he presented this for the first time, and it was this experiment where his team created personas, and then afterwards they were able to do a whole bunch of testing. So in these personas, they created false Gmail accounts. They used all of the AI features of Gemini integrated together. And then afterwards, they tracked what the results were. And they were very different for each persona, based on age, based on income, based on interest. And they fed, Gemini the information, what the persona did and its habits. And then afterwards, the results came back very, very personalized. So one of the things that we are really focused on is, are we who we say we are? And I think that comes down to a digital footprint, but I also think that comes down to the transparency that is now created in this new AI world, where, like Joe said, people are looking to say, how much should I pay for this? Can I do it myself? And people are always on the hunt for authenticity. We will see that more in the rising generation, probably, than even, the boomers. And I don't know. I'm a Gen Xer, so I like to feel like I'm pretty savvy, but I'm a baby of the Gen Xers, if I can just say that. But what I want to say is that we need to move towards that. So a couple of things that I want to just highlight is this. Looking for proof of who you say you are. There's a lot of ways to do that on the internet. And I'm a mom of 5 kids. And if any of you are parents, I don't know if you feel guilty of this, but I often think about these amazing things about my children, and I do not tell it to them enough. And so I've been thinking about this in terms of of marketing, and are we saying what we're doing? Are we going around telling everybody who we are? A couple months back, I can't remember who it was, Bijan, maybe you can remind me after, but there was a gentleman and he said they were not ranking in the way they wanted to when it came to a family business. And there was a lot of people in his market that were moving away from these companies, service companies that had been bought up by larger conglomerates. And so he said we need to say who we are. We need to let people know. And we've heard this idea of like, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one to hear it, doesn't make a sound. And so we want to make a sound. We want to make sure that we're proving what we are and who we are. And that might that might be a painful like undertaking internally. Like, are we who we say we are? Like, is our team who we say we are? Are we doing what we say we are? And so it also gives us an ability to check internally and make sure that we're carrying out on those things. The other thing is, I would also say that I think sometimes when technology comes, we want to find the loopholes. We want to game the system. And I think Gus, last time he talked about like, we don't know what's going on and it's just crazy and it's uncomfortable for all of us. And I think part of us wants to go to this place of like, we'll just game the system. We'll just get the answers that are easy and we'll do the things, whatever they are. We'll have a list and we'll check it off. But I think if we're really trying to win the hearts and minds over people and win over AI preferences and search preferences, because let's be honest, that's still a huge part of our industry. We need to make sure that we are authentically showing up in that way and documenting who we are. I also want to say that, I think in every situation, we have a finite amount of resources in marketing or anything else that we do. So we need to be smart about it. And I know there's a lot of things in terms of marketing where you can just throw money in. I think we feel that way about Google. It's like this tax that we all feel obligated to pay, but we need to make sure that we're building structures and content and authentic value added. One thing that always ranks well is really good content. Value first, thinking of our customers first. That ranks great in the AI world, and it ranks great in the search world. So that's mostly what I have to say about that. But if there's anywhere else you guys want me to go, happy to share more.
Sherelle, thank you very much. I enjoyed listening to you speak on this, and the authenticity part played such a huge part of this AI game. And so what you said, I wrote down what's the evidence of what you're saying is who you are, and then where the puck is going. And so that is a continuous growing experience around AI, and where's this next layer going, and that is a continuous build for us here at Peakzi, is staying ahead of that and making sure that we're tackling that specifically for home services. And then so I really enjoyed hearing that conversation. All right, and last but not least, we have Wes Carver, owner of Wes Carver Electric. Wes brings an operator's perspective on leadership, growth, hiring, and what it takes to build a company that can scale without losing its reputation and customer trust. He's been very focused on how systems consistency and operational execution impacts long-term growth as the industry continues changing rapidly. Wes, looking forward to your thoughts.
Cool. Thanks, Karen. I'm going to come at this from a little bit different angle, but also the premise of this podcast was, scaling past yourself and and then how it relates to AI. I think that for me, for us, we definitely waited too long in building out a leadership team. And that was a scaling issue that we had. So one of the prompted questions was what's a moment that you realized you scaled past yourself? I think that realizing it and then actually acting on it and solving that problem are two different things. So for me, we definitely delayed a little too long on developing that leadership team. And also, didn't make the best decisions with who we brought in. But really, in order to keep operations tight as we've grown, and how that really relates to recruiting, we really started by tightening up who we let in the front door. So instead of, interviewing and hiring, warm bodies, we've all probably been there at one point in time. Instead of just crossing our fingers and hoping for the best, we just got a lot pickier about who we brought onto the team, which also, makes the scaling part a little bit more difficult. We probably all had that person, that we've hired that has done a lot of damage and, more damage than they were worth in the long term. So we really try and focus on, just getting better at that, who we're bringing onto the team, making sure that they're onboarded right, making sure they're good culture fits, and the customer's going to have a good experience with them. I think also, in regards to growth and systems, processes, I think we've gotten a little bit better. We can always get better at it, but identifying issues quicker and then just getting on them and coming up with a solution. So, just picking up, identifying those opportunities a little bit earlier in the process so that we can react. Really how AI plays into that for us. Some of the ways that we're using that, probably like everybody else, we've used it for documenting new position descriptions for our team, new processes, and a lot of times it'll get us pretty far along, but definitely using it as a jumping off point to get us started with those processes, like Joe and Sherelle said. Also, we're using speed to lead, obviously trying to, get that customer interaction going as quick as possible if we're not able to answer it live for whatever reason, whether it's an online booking or it's one of the other online lead sources, or, if we are all busy on the phones, getting that overflow call answered quickly. So really we're using, like a lot of folks, and has already been mentioned, we're using AI for our overflow calls and after hour calls and digital agent services. Really for our marketing, one shift that we've made is just trying to make sure that, and Peakzi's been a big help with this, is just making sure that all of our content is, all of our content used to be readable by a human being. Now we're trying to make it, while still being easily read by a human, but really making sure that the AI is reading it and getting what they need out of it. One of the other things that I feel that's changed is, with the AI, it has kind of helped with a revival, I guess, of all these, I'm just, for lack of a better term, call them what we would consider like bottom feeder lead sources, like the Angies, the Yelps, the Thumbtacks, all of those. So where we were primarily concentrating on a presence on Google and a presence on Facebook and social media, now we're having to revisit all of these other individual platforms as they've kind of generated their different, platform partnerships with the AI. So now we're getting drugged back into, making sure that we have reviews that are showing up in all these places now, instead of really just focusing on those couple that we were focused on before, mainly Facebook and Google. So that's been a challenge as well. And then really, as far as the recruiting part of it goes, we haven't created a whole lot of systems for that, but we are constantly monitoring for what's being said about us. If we're, regularly doing searches like, is West Harbor Electric a great place to work? Verifying what's being shown. We're doing that with other different customer searches and just testing that out, seeing what's coming back and what the AI is actually saying about us. We touched on the pricing transparency a little bit. We actually were playing with this a little bit more this week in the office. So we're in the process of implementing this with Peakzi, but even just in our marketing meeting yesterday, we were putting in different search queries and just playing around with it. And really, I know that it's something that we need to do, and it's something that everybody's struggling with how to attack that and how to deal with it. And really, we're trying, again, we're working with Peakzi to try and get the framework in, what a recommended framework is for that. But we were running like test queries and in our meeting, and just we were getting all kinds of answers. So I think it's unfortunate, but it's got a little bit of a ways to go until there's, I think, meaningful numbers and accurate numbers coming out of there. So how we're going to be dealing with that with the customers, I don't know. I think that's going to be an ongoing challenge, and really just trying to keep the techs educated when they're in the house on how to kind of deal with that objection of, well, AI tells me it should only be this much, or, Google told me it was only going to be that much. So we were electrical only, and we were in right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So we were doing various searches yesterday, and we put in how much to install a 200 amp meter socket. And the range came up really low, surprisingly, right? Now we went back in and added a geo modifier on that. So what if we do that in Doylestown, Pennsylvania? So some of the tasks that we were looking at, the price was going up, and some of them it was going down, that price range. So in addition to that meter socket question, we were then going in and saying, all right, well, what if it's a meter socket? I'm trying to get figure out where it's pulling these numbers from and the information from. So then we go in and say, well, what would it cost to install a 200 amp meter socket with a panel, with grounding, and with permits and inspections? And in some cases, the number actually went down instead of going up. So I think that that's just something that AI is great. I think we can all agree it's a disruptor right now, but we're also all trying to figure it out at the same time. So really, the best way that we've tried to do that is between working with Peakzi and then also working with our digital agency, and kind of getting both opinions on things and seeing, we're just continuing to try stuff to see what works and what's successful.
All right. Thank you, Wes. I think how you ended that was very real and truthful of we're trying to figure this out and bridging together how it's changing between traditional search and AI search. And then some of the things of tightening up who you let in the door. And then you brought it in reference to how the onboarding to the culture fits, to how that affects your team, to where it translates to the customer. I thought that was a very powerful statement because that is how that works. And then at the end, you mentioned making sure your technicians are informed on the pricing transparency aspect of this. And so they are showing that same consistency that you're putting out the information to the consumer. All right, so now we're going to open it up to Q&A. So please drop questions into the Q&A section. We have a few questions so far. One is question is to the panelists. Are you already experiencing growing leads from AI search, and how are you tracking it?
I can jump in a little bit here. I mean, obviously, we are using Peakzi. We were pretty early to adopt. I think once I heard about it, I knew the technology was going there. I still find it a little bit hard for us to truly track where that is coming from. But we are seeing increased leads, and I think our biggest way we can tell is when the customer's calling in, we're still asking, how did you hear about us? I know everybody relies heavily on the tracking campaigns, and that is great. But there's still a lot of value in still asking the customer, hey, how did you hear about us? And a lot of times they'll just tell you, hey, I went in Chat GPT or I used Gemini. And, that's how we're getting some of our results. And it's good and bad. Those customers some are well informed, which is good because then it can make your job easier when you get into the house. Other ones, they're strictly just looking at the price, and it could be a little more challenging as well. That's my take on what we're seeing.
I'll add my take on that as well. So we all agree that ChatGPT is a player in the digital lead generation game at this point. It's becoming a market maker, but that market is not as mature as Google. Google has all the bells and whistles to track engagement, conversions, leads, revenue. ChatGPT is not there yet. It will be there. It has to get there. Um, about a week ago, they did announce formal advertising where you can start experimenting with a cost per click model, which sounds eerily similar to Google's pay per click model, and that does have attribution associated to it. But to Joe's point, the best way to nail this is just to have good, healthy practices with your call center representatives to always ask, how did you hear about us? And if they said ChatGPT, document that correctly inside of your CRM, because then you can track book inbound calls, booked appointments, and revenue. That market, ChatGPT and others, is going to mature for lead attribution. But I always tell people, if you work with us or not, you need to be doing that. There's more complex ways to track. Peaksy's doing that, others are doing that, but the simplest thing you can do is ask. And separately, with that dynamic number insertion that a lot of people do for automatic lead attribution, there's some holes in that with ChatGPT specifically, because sometimes it takes your Google number, your Facebook number, your Bing Places number. There's not a lot of consistency. So, for that question from the panelists is a very important question. The market's going to get there, but do what Joe is doing and others are doing. Just ask, and if you can, and trust your CSRs to document correctly.
I think part of that question also, not only how are we tracking, but what's coming from, are we seeing leads coming directly from AI? And again, we were looking at something that was kind of interesting the other day, and I asked the question because I don't personally handle all the marketing in our office, but meet once a week on marketing. And so we're going through, and like our AI visibility was like great, and then took a dip and then came back again. It was like, I don't know that we have a really great answer to that, but we didn't materially change anything different in the process. Anything in our either what our partners were doing or what Peakzi was doing. So I think that we may end up just seeing these ebbs and flows and maybe not quite fully understand it at this point.
I built a template in Looker Studio, which is now called Data Studio, using all of our events and GA4 data. So I have a template. If you want to use my template, just drop me a DM in my LinkedIn and I'll send it to you.
And I could just speak. I have sent Sherelle's template to other people asking this question, and it is good. It will track ChatGPT traffic and behavior on your main website. So definitely recommend for whoever asked that question slash others. There's some ways to do this, but it takes a little bit of building because the market is not there yet. And like I said, the market will get there. It's just um, not there yet. But trust me, ChatGPT and others want to solve that problem because they need to make money and they need to track the leads that they're sending because they're burning a ton of cash right now.
Good point. All right. Going to go to a next question. Lane, you asked, what are your thoughts about doing AI press releases? Should we do this to help build authority with AI, or is Peakzi doing this for us with the blogs?
I can jump in there. So my answer is yes, you should do it. We see awards and recognition slash press releases do have some ties to increasing visibility. That is exactly why Peaksy started having our clients come on that podcast because we could see that as a third party trust signal to help you get some more backlinks and help you be more likely to be recommended by a ChatGPT like engine. Um, and it kind of ties into what Wes was saying too, whereas some of these, and it's not exactly to press releases, but it is kind of concerning the ecosystem of your business around your website, where some of these kind of tier three and tier four directories like Yelp and Angie, BBB, whereas they're an afterthought previously, are now becoming more and more relevant because we're seeing that AI engines are scraping a lot of data off of those directories and using it to say, should I recommend this business? So, press releases, we'll kind of call it awards and recognition. Anything that you have from a third party that mentions your business, your website, can be leveraged to help increase visibility. So, Lane, yes, do the Peaksy podcast. If you have means for separate press releases, tap into that too. Also, pay attention to, like what Wes was saying, those Angie and Yelp profiles with the reviews there, because all of that plays a part. Even last webinar, Gus was speaking from Milestone, and he said something that I thought was so strong. He said that I have 40,000 Google reviews. And I don't even know if that's going to matter anymore because now the game is getting diversified where it was purely Google in the past. I mean, what a strong statement. And think about it for other contractors in the room, the playing field is now kind of rewiring. It's taking a couple steps back where we all historically concentrated on Google. And I think that presents a great opportunity. If someone's saying, I don't know if my 40,000 Google reviews are going to matter anymore. So, long answer for you, Lane, but if anyone wants to piggyback on that, feel free.
Yeah, I'll just touch back on that, Bijan, because I did say that in the opening remarks, but and I'll just speak for Alexa because personally that's what I have a little bit more experience with. I have one in my house just to kind of goof around on it and just ask it stuff and see how things are changing. And we weren't on Thumbtack at all. And once I got the Alexa Plus, upgrade or whatever in my house, getting on there, and then one day one of the prompts on the screen was, "Hey, can we recommend a plumber or something?" It was some home services ad. I said, "Sure. Why don't you recommend one?" And it gave me the name of three people that I was like, these are not three companies that I would recommend or that I would think would be recommended on Alexa. So I asked Alexa, I said, well, where did you get these from? Well, I got them from Thumbtack. I'm like, well, I don't want someone from Thumbtack. Can you give me somebody else? Said, I'm only set up to give you leads from Thumbtack. So, and I think that's when I was mentioning the different partnerships of all these AI platforms. Alexa is paired to, and then it was 2 months later, and then I think they were recommending off of Yelp. So it's just constantly changing, and I think that all these AI platforms they're paired up and they're contracted with somebody. They're pulling the data from somewhere, not just one source, or not all the sources, but like for instance, that Alexa was only going to pull from Thumbtack. So like, okay, well, we need to go on Thumbtack and just see what that does. So that's, I guess, just to piggyback on what you were saying.
Thanks. And it's interesting what is coming back around. I saw one of the strong indicators is like MapQuest and Thumbtack, like you mentioned, Wes, is those weren't as relevant before. And now these are becoming more and more relevant. And so those tracking and making sure your information's out and consistent throughout is becoming such a big game changer for who is recommended. I do have a question about, it says briefly talked about price transparency. Do you believe this is something that's urgent or if waiting to see what others do first is better? And that can be to any of the panelists.
I'll take a stab at it. I think it is pretty urgent. I know Peakzi is developing a price transparency tool that we're engaging and hopefully going to launch pretty soon. In the meantime, we had put it's kind of hidden on the back end of our website. Really, just had some price ranges on there. Um, the customers, human customers can find it, but we were really hoping that with AI kind of scraping the website, that it would come up on that side. Um, but I think it is going to be crucial that price transparency, and we're doing our best to combat it at this time. But I think again, it's going to be more and more. We hear it more on the phones. Customers with that objection, can't you just give me a price? Like I feel like we hear that more and more in the call center right now.
Yeah, my take on that, and I'll just say what Sherelle said. You need to go where the puck is going, not where the puck is. The puck is going towards price transparency, and it's not like it's a new issue. It's just getting like recycled and more apparent right now because of AI adoption. All of our research shows that a very high intent query question happening on AI search right now is how much does it cost? How much should it cost? Wes kind of gave some good information on that too. He's asking specific questions and getting some garbage answers. And like he's saying there's more work done and the price is going down. So it's kind of like a sketchy situation right now with the way these models have been trained. They got a lot of data from big box stores, not service installers. So we, as part of that mission, want to kind of untrain that, give it good data from the residential shops that are actually in the community doing that work And to the question, like, do you believe this is something that's urgent, or if waiting to see what others do first is better? I am of the opinion that it is urgent, but it's going to be, I mean, if you don't do anything now, it's going to hurt a little bit more in the future. And waiting to see what others do first is better. I'm not a fan of that personally because I want to always be ahead of the game and have the clients I work with be ahead of the game. All the research shows this is critical. So, you know, there's kind of like three buckets of adoption with this. There's like early adopters, middle of the pack, and people are going to lag. It sounds like this question is a middle of the pack type of question, but I would kind of challenge whoever asked that question to say, do you want to be where the puck is or you want to be ahead of the puck? And kind of buy into this. And I know it's a tough subject, but we wouldn't be doing our job if we weren't talking about this heavily right now.
Yes.
If I can, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
If I can say something more about this too, one thing that's different is our interactions with AI. And it's not so much of putting like a query string in and looking for results. It's an ongoing dialogue. And so just like Joe and Wes talked about just adding parameters to our searches, I think it's really important to be in touch with our customers. We did a survey about a year back, and we tried to understand in different demographic ranges what the highest pain points were in each area. And we were able to change some of our wording around their fears, and so that we feel like we're addressing some of the things that people are nervous about. And money is a thing. Like, money costs things. People wouldn't necessarily say, I'm going to go buy a car and I want to find the cheapest one. For sure they're not. There's a reason why Tesla and Lexus and all of these high-end brands are in like, people are going for that. They want that. But I think there's an education piece. And I think that it's not limited just to our customers. Over the years, we've been in a situation, I'm sure you all have, where we're trying to educate our customers that if you want to go with the cheapest price, you're going to get that level of experience and that sort of, service. But in the case with AI, we need to be able to answer the questions, answer the problems, speak to the fears before they come up. So if money is an option, are we putting on the table? We offer financing at a great rate. We're not going to be, shark. We're not loan sharking, and we can make it really easy for you. These are some things that you can know about the service. Like, we have warranties, we have this, we have that. And so I think it's important too. One thing that we offer is a price transparency guarantee. And so we're leading our information with that, our AI schema information, and also other places where the customer would see that, so that we can address not just the price question, but like any good salesperson would, address all the fears around it.
Good point. And this next question kind of leads from that. Like, how are customer expectations changing because of AI and instant information? And Sherelle, you kind of just mentioned some of that aspect. So I would love for you to go in a little bit more, or Wes or Joe.
Yeah, again, I think that I'll follow up on what Joe said. We're getting more price over the phone. Why can't you give me a price over the phone? I think in addition to that, techs are getting price checked in the house. When they're in the home and they're presenting, hey, it should only cost this. We've always had that to a degree, but I think it's becoming more and more frequent. So just understanding how we're going to deal with that, both in the call center and then in the home.
All right. And then how do you balance from an owner's perspective, the culture and accountability and the customer experience as you grow?
When I figure it out, I will let you know. I think a few years back, when we started adding people, after we had been in the service and repair model for a few years, started gaining some traction and adding some people in. We definitely didn't bring all the right people in to the team. It did affect the culture. And so we've kind of taken a look at that and said, once we had kind of cleared out those obstacles and had a chance to kind of rebuild it a little bit, definitely doing it with the culture in mind and with the team in mind, as we're doing that. Ultimately, that's going to give the customer the best experience. If we have happy technicians going out to the calls to help them out. But really, I think it's just you have to be intentional with it. It's not like a lot of people say, "Hey, throw a pizza party." Well, it's not just about a pizza party. You can have core values. It's not about the words that are on the wall, but what you do with them. And do you live them every day? Do you speak it to the team? Uh, do you hire and fire and make decisions based on those? So I think round one or round two of building back the team, we did a better job for sure on culture. And I think it's just something that is important to do to keep in mind every day. It's not just a twice a year thing when you throw a party. It's making sure that people feel engaged, having the difficult conversations, but also making sure that we're having the good conversations as well. So we're putting deposits in and not just making withdrawals all the time, for the accountability factor of that. So I think all those things, you live and you learn, and you self-reflect on where you got off track, and then try and bring it back on track again the second time, next time.
Well said. And it's a continuous learning game. All right. Next question. Outside of phones and marketing, where do you see the biggest opportunities for automation in the home service business?
Outside of phones and marketing,
Hmm.
I mean, you look at it for, we use ServiceTitan in our software there. I mean, there's probably, you're just scratching the surface of it for dispatching. You can get in there and, automate some things, um, automate reports. I'm sure there's a ton of things there that can happen. You just got to really dig in. There's stuff I can't even think of that I'm sure people are already doing.
One thing that I think about is microdata. We have a lot of homes in Calgary and in Edmonton and in Red Deer who use Poly B. And so I've been writing an article about Poly B and changing over and how terrible it is. But it's this incredible amount of information that we have internally. So being able to collect the data, scrape the data, learn what we can, decide, what communities need this service the most, how we can help them. And certainly there's a marketing element to that, but there's also just an understanding there. And I think that's one of the things that AI can do the best is actually help you aggregate your data.
All right. And as we're getting close to time, I'm going to ask, we had one question come in and it says, is there any stats you can provide on how many are using AI search over traditional search?
It's funny. When I got that question, I typed it into Google, and then I exited out of the window and I typed it, just copied and pasted the same question into Google. It gave me two different numbers. And I think that's a quite example of how AI is not perfect yet. So the first question time I typed in, it said 40. And then the second time I typed it in, it said 80. Just a classic example that these tools are not perfect. And it's just going to pull whatever data it can find from whatever article that has some hits and credibility. There's not one flat stat to answer that question. It's very demographic based and it's very location based. I think the theme, and I know this isn't a perfect answer, is that the theme is that the search marketplace is splitting, and you need to pay attention to traditional search and be present there, and you need to pay attention to AI search and be present there, and have tactics and strategies around getting leads out of both systems. But I'm just giving you the honest truth. I literally copied and pasted that into Google twice and got two different answers within a span of 10 minutes. So there's not one concrete stat. There's so much information on this subject. Um, but it would be kind of like full of smoke if I said it's 32% or something like that, because there's just not enough concrete data, and it's very location dependent.
Going back to Sherelle's comment about authenticity and how
Hmm.
important it is.
Hmm.
Being honest. Okay.
So can I just add on to that? I know
Yeah.
BJ and like button that up a lot tighter than I did, But when we were doing it, I found the same thing. It was just the inconsistency of the answers when we were talking about price transparency with that task, like adding additional items to that task and making it more complex, and the numbers sometimes going up, sometimes going down, and there was no real rhyme or reason to it. So
Mhm.
just in the pricing transparency too, I think the same applies.
Yeah. I think so. There's some macro stats out there, and really, it's just what's happening is like Google is kind of flat with usage, but every single month, systems like ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity are increasing in usage and weekly active users, and kind of some big statistics like that. So we do think that traditional search right now is more popular than AI search, but no crystal balls. In a couple years or less, AI search is going to take over traditional search, especially when younger people, with home services specifically, younger people becoming homeowners, hopefully. That's really a big shift in terms of the trades and lead gen.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you, Bajan. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Sherelle. Thank you, Wes, for joining us today and being part of this panel. I know from some of the feedback that we have started receiving on this is that these are good conversations of just it feels like you're sitting there talking to friends that own the same similar businesses as you, and truly wanting to figure out what's happening and making sure that we're having these open conversations. So we do these monthly webinars. Our next one will be June 18th, and we hope to see you then. Thank you all for joining.